Trevor, you're from New Zealand. Why do you care? I mean, you make a fantastic film. You obviously poured time, money, effort into this. You're not even from America. Why the burden here?
Well, there is a debt. My country was saved from invasion during World War II by the Japanese army only because of the huge sacrifice of, your fathers and grandfathers and uncles at the battles of Guadalcanal and the Coral Sea and Midway. So we feel very grateful for that. But really it's also because, the U.S. Constitution is the guiding light for anyone who loves liberty. And if the U.S. Constitution is allowed to die, the light of liberty will go out across the planet, not just in America, but every free country of the world. Because, the world is full of bad guys, from Moscow and Beijing and Havana and Tehran and the radical Islamic movement. And if America isn't leading the world, those people will take over. And that's not a kind of world I want to leave to my children.
You state in this film, there's kind of a little bit of a deception going on. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it took away the image of the enemy, and that's how they have infiltrated. So apparently there's kind of a delusion that the Soviet Union, no longer Russia, whatever you want to call it, the whole communist world has sort of diminished in significance. So you say that's when they really made inroads.
Yeah, well, look, 2 weeks ago, Vladimir Putin was in Sochi, Russia, where he headlined a convention, a 50,000-strong convention of communist youth from all over the world. And that was there to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. And Vladimir Putin specifically intervened to organize that venue for the Russian communist youth. You've got to understand right now that Russia is backing the Taliban in Afghanistan. Russia is backing ISIS. Russia is backing Hamas and Al-Qaeda. Russia is still backing Cuba and Venezuela, all the old communist bloc countries. And it's still an alliance, informal alliance through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with Communist China. So Russia is not our friend. And Russia now has 3 times more nuclear weapons than the United States at minimum, and double the number of soldiers under arms. So it's very naive to think that because they don't talk about communism so much these days, that they're still not committed to that goal. The KGB still runs Russia. It's more powerful in Russia than it ever was before. So it is infiltrating our system. It's backing Black Lives Matter. It's backing other radical groups in America. So, yeah, it's definitely still a threat.
I want to play what I think this might be a trailer that you have, and it presents in just about 2 minutes and 25 seconds, kind of what this film is all about, and then I'll tell folks how they can get it.
Trevor Loudon is a guy from New Zealand. He's a dad who is concerned about the world.
I'm an activist, author and researcher from Christchurch, New Zealand.
He is the official commie hunter.
For 5 years I've been traveling to the United States to expose the greatest act of betrayal in modern history.
That old school communism that you saw with the USSR, it's not dead, it's alive and well, and it's not just in North Korea.
The United States, a country founded on the very principles of liberty and freedom, whose soldiers have shed blood for more than 200 years to protect, is now facing the most dangerous enemy it has ever seen, the enemy within.
I've been following your stuff for a long time, and it's overwhelming.
Why is America slowly sinking into poverty, despair, and socialism? Why is the American economy teetering on the brink of collapse? Why are the allies of the United States slowly backing away as its enemies become more brazen? Is this all an accident, perhaps a coincidence, or just inevitable decline? Or has this been a deliberately engineered attack on the greatest nation the world has ever seen?
We actually have bad actors who have penetrated our system, basically making decisions the way Iran and North Korea and China and Russia would like us to make decisions.
So basically Trojan horses inside the infrastructure.
Yeah, an insider threat.
America has enemies operating in the highest levels of the federal government who are deliberately working to bring the nation to its knees.
If you look at every policy that the Obama administration has instituted, it has an older brother living in Venezuela.
The enemies within names names and pulls no punches. It exposes exactly how hardcore anti-American activists have penetrated the highest branches of the US government and are working together to destroy the Constitution and finally extinguish the American dream.
We're seeing the disintegration of a noble world order.
If America falls, every Western country goes down.
If America is weakened, our allies are weakened. And then we talk about dominoes.
Every free nation will fall alongside her.
Understand what this is really about.
We've never been in more danger from these powers.
The enemies within will expose the names, reveal the faces, and show you what the mainstream media won't allow you to see.
The enemy is within because they are in our government.
You're listening to Understanding the Times Radio. I'm Jan Markell. I have on the line Trevor Loudon, writer-producer of a DVD I've viewed very recently called Enemies Within. Here's how you get it. First of all, we're not carrying it, but you can get it at enemieswithinmovie.com, enemieswithinmovie.com. That you have to order it online. And Trevor, as I was listening to that clip, something came to my mind, and that is some 8-9 years ago, probably 9-10 years ago now, Barack Obama promised the transformation of America. Now, I think he kind of opened the door to a lot of what you're revealing here. I mean, he's himself committed Marxist. But now we have a new sheriff in town, as they keep saying. Do you see perhaps a greater pushback against the enemies of within with Barack Obama out of the picture, though he's still organizing for action with his little group behind the scenes?
Yeah, look, there's still a war going on right now because there are a whole bunch of Obama holdovers still in the administration. You really have two presidents in the United States right now. You have Donald Trump and Barack Obama, and it hasn't been decided yet who is in complete control. Mm-hmm. So the election of Donald Trump was a huge victory, for our side in a way, for freedom, because not so much about Trump himself, but because of the fact that Hillary Clinton would have effectively finished Obama's job for him. Mm-hmm. And I want to say two things that she would have done, that she promised to do within 100 days of taking office. The first one, she was going to implement UN Resolution 1618, which she helped to design and implement through the State Department. It's an operation of the Organization of Islamic Conference, the largest Muslim Brotherhood front group in the world. And that resolution would have technically made it illegal to criticize Islam in this country. It would have made it a felony. So that was one thing. The other thing she was promised to do within 100 days of taking office was to legalize every illegal immigrant in the country and give them citizenship and voting rights. Now, people need to understand the significance of this. Now, Mitt Romney lost his election by 2.5 million votes. Donald Trump won by about 200,000 votes. They're very slim margins, right? Now, there are between 10 and 30 million illegals in this country right now. We know that they will vote approximately 80% at least for the Democratic Party. That would mean between 10 and 24 million new votes for the Democratic Party. That would have essentially created a one-party state in America. Mm-hmm. It could never be overturned. And my argument is that even if you're a Democrat, do you really want to live in a country where one party rules forever? Because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's my contention in the movie, and I'm not giving the Republicans a pass on this at all. There are a lot of problems in the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party since 1994 has effectively been completely taken over at the top level by Marxists. And Barack Obama was the crowning glory, and he filled the party with communists. He filled the administration with communists, and that is the problem that Donald Trump is now dealing with.
You name some allies. Now, first of all, let me back up a little bit. You say that what was once Marxist and Leninist, they now just call themselves progressive. You say that most communists say they are socialists. You spend a good amount of time talking about the Democratic democratic socialists, which is what Bernie Sanders is, and I want to get to Sanders here in a minute. And then you talk about there are certain allies of the democratic socialists of America, and you name them. And I'm just going to go down a list of names that you name. In other words, the names I'm about to name, you name, and let's just say in simple terms, these folks are sympathetic, to say the least, to communism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it. You name Representatives Jerry Nadler, Maxine Waters, Alan Grayson, Florida, John Lewis, Barbara Mikulski, who's since stepped down, retired, Debbie Stabenow, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, we'll get there in a moment. You name other names that are, again, very friendly to the whole Marxist message. Patty Murray, Washington, Al Franken, Minnesota, Claire McCaskill, Keith Ellison, Muslim. Again, I'm naming a lot from Minnesota. Amy Klobuchar, Luis Gutierrez. You even name Mark Dayton, the governor of Minnesota. You spend a fair amount of time talking about Representative Andrew Carson, another Muslim. And you also consider John Conyers of Michigan to be one of the most troubling in office with communist ties. Now, a couple of these names, perhaps more than a couple, I've named as I speak, are embroiled in some scandals, and whether or not they remain in office is questionable. We don't know at this point. All I'm saying is you're naming the names of some people, and as I just read some of those names, some of my listeners are shocked.
Well, they should be, and it goes further than that. I maintain currently in Congress there are about 100 members of the United States House of Representatives and about 20, probably more close to 25 senators who are so enmeshed in neo-communism or Muslim Brotherhood front groups, or in many cases both, that they couldn't pass a basic FBI background check to drive a school bus. They couldn't sell you stamps at the post office, but they're serving on the Homeland Security Committee, the Armed Services Committee, even the Intelligence Committee of the House of Representatives. And so these people are trashing your country every day. But the horrible thing is, there are no security background checks in Congress, none whatsoever. So you have people serving in there that wouldn't be allowed to clean the toilets at any military base in your country, yet they're serving on the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee, and they are working with enemy nations like the Cubans and the Chinese and the Russians to bring this country to its knees. And I think we make a good case for that in the movie.
Yep, you do. Again, folks, find it at enemieswithinmovie.com.